find out that you had ADHD and how did you feel about it?
I originally found out I had ADHD when I was roughly 8 years old. I was sent off for a dyslexia assessment and the assessor recommended that I go for an ADHD assessment, that I showed traits of ADHD. Originally I was pretty scared about it, but after a year or two I lightened up. I became really open about having my ADHD, and it opened up pathways because people more understood why I did certain things different ways. Yeah.
How did you cope with ADHD in school?
Primary school was tough due to slight bullying, slagging, that I had ADHD, that I took medication. But when I became more open about it, the bullies didn't, well, for word to call them bullies, didn't have, as you can say, ammunition to bully me on because I was so open. They couldn't slag me on anything because I was open. And then as I went on to secondary school, people more understood ADHD, and I self-educated. I learned about it myself through reading different articles to do with ADHD, and I was better able to explain it to people that didn't fully understand ADHD.
Do you feel like the teachers supported you or understood what your condition was?
Some teachers did, but many didn't fully understand what ADHD was. They knew the symptoms, but they didn't know how to deal with it too well in a classroom setting. So I found myself having to point in directions of informational websites and books and such to allow them to be able to understand how to cope with it in a classroom setting.
Do you feel like ADHD stopped you academically or
no.
held you back?
I couldn't say ADHD helped me back in a sense, because I just started leaving sort of 8 subjects, and 7 of which I did higher level, including maths, which I'm very proud of. At the same time, it was often hard studying for the Leaving Cert. It was often hard finding somewhere quiet to study. I could go sit in a room that was completely silent, but yet I'd get distracted by something in the room. A picture, a pattern on the wall, anything could distract it. I found really helpful was supervised study, or even going to a local library. As it was quiet, but yet there was still people around, so it felt supervised, safe in the library, or a supervised study with a teacher, where you could, if you're stuck in a problem, you could ask them, and they could give you the advice needed. Originally in first year, when they're sorting out the classes for different levels, due to my ADHD and dyslexia, I was put into Foundation Maths and Foundation Irish, but which I didn't like, because it was kind of labelling me as I can't do higher maths, or I can't do English as well as others, just because of my assessments, which were based, from what I can gather, off nothing to do with any levels the school knew of. It was then my year head, who was a maths teacher, had seen my results from the entrance exam and found that, I scored the highest in the year in the visual assessment with objects and squares and circles and geometry. So she decided to bring me up from foundation maths to ordinary, and then it was common level in first year. Then at the end of this first year, going on to second year, she then put me into higher maths, which was pretty helpful, because otherwise, without her, I wouldn't have been able to do higher maths for the junior cert or the leaving cert, because I would have been stuck in a foundation class, or I may have got up to ordinary. Then another difficulty I found in school was timetables and remembering books. Originally in first year, even second year, the whole way through to sixth year, my timekeeping skills were really bad. I'd forget books all the time. Homework that I had done, I would often forget, and I often kept multiple photocopies of my timetable with me in my pocket. It also helped that because I was really open about my ADHD, a lot of teachers knew that I had it. So the odd time when I would forget my homework, they wouldn't give out straight away. They'd let me off on a warning that day. But mainly because I wasn't constantly forgetting it time and time again. I'd give them the advice to be polite to the teacher. That the teacher is only trying to help them. Also, own up to your mistakes. Don't try to pass it off as an issue just because you have ADHD or because you have some other diagnosis, and try and work with the teacher to solve the solution. Try not to backchat the teacher. The teacher's always only there to help you.
Okay. How did you manage your homework?
Actually, I managed my homework quite poorly at the start. It got better as I got older, but at the same time it didn't. My homework was still quite poor. Sometimes I'd forget to do subjects entirely. That's one of the parts I found quite difficult as well, was to remember to do stuff, because it's quite easy to switch to do homework for an hour and then go to eat or go for a break for 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes turns into 3 hours, which quite often happened.
Do you want to talk about the differences between you and your friends?
Yeah, a lot of my friends have ADHD, but we're all completely different. And it kind of just shows that even a group of people so close as us with ADHD, none of us are similar anyway. It just shows how diverse the symptoms are, that there's not one solution to ADHD. One friend, me being quiet in class, another friend who could completely zone out, and someone else who without knowing it could disturb a whole class and get in the teacher's nerves quite easily. But we all still have the same diagnosis of ADHD. Will Smith would be a huge one. He's just funny, and he's just himself, and he doesn't care what people think about him, which is what I think a lot of people with ADHD have a problem with, just being themselves. They try to hide that they have ADHD, which I can't understand at all. He just seems so open, and he just doesn't care what people think. He's going to be himself no matter what.
Okay, and just one last question. Do you have any advice for somebody younger than yourself who has ADHD and who's really struggling with it?
The advice I give to someone younger that has ADHD and struggling is to be open. And at first, some people may not be understanding, but eventually you'll find there's loads of people that are understanding of ADHD, and it's better to have friends that like you because who you are, instead of something you're pretending to be. Especially if you're hiding ADHD. then life also gets easier as you get older, as people get more mature and they're more understanding of ADHD and what it is, and also like dealing with diagnosis is like you're the same the year before as you are after the diagnosis. The only thing is you know you have ADHD now, where before you had it you didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah.